Hello and welcome to Think Like a Game Designer. I'm your host, Justin Gary. In this podcast, I'll be having conversations with brilliant game designers from across the industry with a goal of finding universal principles that anyone can apply in their creative life. You could find episodes and more at thinklikeagamedesigner.com.
In today's episode, I speak with Elan Lee. Elan is a legendary game designer that has worked on the Xbox, created the world's first alternate reality games, interactive media, created the hit game Exploding Kittens, and turned it into an incredible business with countless hits, including Poetry for Neanderthals and the recently released Coyote. You can learn more about Elan's background way back in episode 20 of this podcast when we talked and brought him up to speed to where he started his company. And this episode, we get to go into a deep dive on what has made Exploding Kittens the largest independent game publisher in the world, selling millions and millions of copies. You almost certainly have played their games and seen them in Walmart and Target and all kinds of other places. And we have such a fun conversation. Elan is a great human being, and we dig deep into the details of how Exploding Kittens designs games, their testing process, the development of a really rigorous playtesting group. We talk about how games are marketed and how his marketing team actually has veto power over even great games that he might otherwise want to release. We really go deep into even some games that he would love to produce but can't, given the marketing and the positioning of Exploding Kittens. So this is so much fun. It's just a great conversation in general. But if you love creating businesses, if you love making games, there's tons of great stuff here for you. You can also check out my previous episode with Tim Ferriss, where we talk about his perspective on Coyote. It's really fun to see the two different sides of how this thing got made. There's so much great content here. I love talking to Elan. I'm almost certainly going to be doing it again, hopefully in person next time. But without any further ado, here is Elan Lee.
Hello and welcome. I am back with Elan Lee. Elan, welcome back to the podcast, my friend.
Yeah, second time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. And so, you dropped a ton of gold in the last podcast. I re-listened to it kind of as part of my prep for this one. That was now 5 years ago, episode 20.
5 years ago, I could not have possibly had anything interesting to say, but I will take your word for it.
Well, you have lived like so many crazy creative lives, right? I mean, you've done so much from the movie business to video games and Xbox and now tabletop and across the board. So it's actually, whatever. It's one of the coolest backstories I think I know of anybody, and I've talked to a lot of really cool people. So
I'll take it. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, and just mostly holding on for dear life these days.
Yeah, so that's what I want to know about here, right? Because we're going to talk about some specific projects, but like Exploding Kittens has not, when we talked before, you were it was a monster project that had then spawned additional things, but now it's this monster. I think you called it the largest independent game studio, but it's sort of becoming its own behemoth in the space. So like, what is that like? Like, what is it? What's the vibe?
Yeah, isn't it weird? Like 5 years ago, it was a baby monster. I appreciate you calling it a monster, but it was, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Now it's 10 years old. I think we've made, we've designed more than 60 games. We've got a TV show. We just launched our 10-year anniversary board game. We've done partnerships and licenses, and we're just exploring, plush toys and on the list goes. But the answer to what's it like is kind of overwhelming. Like I was in a board meeting today, and we were just discussing the next few years of the company and all these things that we have to go through. And I put it on mute for a second. I was actually in the car driving with my wife, and I put it on mute for a second, and she looked at me and she says, "Do you realize that you built all that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "There's 25 people on this call, and they're discussing financials, and they're discussing fiscal responsibility, and they're discussing OKRs, and they're discussing budgets and projections and recalculating projections and all this stuff." And she's like, "I just want you to take a moment and take a breath and realize you built this thing." And it was this very surreal moment for me because it's worth doing every once in a while, is just like take a step back and think like, holy crap, like this 10 years ago, this was literally nothing. And 5 years ago, it was big, but it was still a baby. And today it's just, it defies all logic, all expectation. I cannot believe I built this thing with, of course, some friends, Matt and Min, of course. And now we get to run it and we get to keep building it. And it's the best party ever. I'm so glad I was invited.
Yeah, amazing, and just the genuine joy and enthusiasm that's exuding from you is awesome and wonderful to see, and the reminder to practice gratitude for wherever you are and the things you've been able to do. So I just got back from Gen Con where we celebrated the 15-year anniversary of Ascension, right? In my game, in my company, which was wild.
Congratulations!
Thank you, and it's one of those things where, again, I don't know, my default mode, right, coming as a game player is always like, I'm always focused on like what's going wrong, right? Like what needs to be fixed, what's the problem as I'm designing a game.
Totally a game player.
And that's like what I do by default. And it's helped, it's served me, right? I mean, it's been a useful frame and powerful mindset that's allowed me to solve problems and achieve things, but it's not a great recipe for like contentment and happiness and joy.
Querying for what's wrong every single minute.
Just a constant scan, And in many ways, it's part of why I was glad I kind of dropped out of law school, because like I felt like as a lawyer, you're kind of like, you're trained to be looking for the worst case scenario all the time. Right. Like that's your job. Like what could go wrong and how do I fix it? How do I prevent that?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So that's an incredible part of it. But I and that seeing that gratitude and seeing you in this role as happy as you are, maybe the happiest I've seen you, or at least, that's what I'm feeling in this conversation.
Yeah.
So then I'm curious what your life is like now compared to what it was 5 years ago. I actually got to run into to Carly McGinnis at Gen Con also, and she seems amazing, and had talked a little bit about her role. I'm going to try to get her on the podcast as well. But she seems really, really cool. But like maybe we could just speak a little bit about like how you've decided, like what roles you take on for yourself now. How do you like distribute that, key parts of running this now, just, pretty massive business that you got to have, board meetings and reviews and financial projections and all the things.
And OKRs. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up Carly, because she is really key to answering this question. 5 years ago, let's go all the way back to like 9 years ago. This was really small. This was like 3 or 4 people in my garage, and we had one game, maybe 2 at that point. And we had these meetings. I remember we had these meetings where we called them all hands. There's 3 of us, 4 of us. Like, what the hell's an all hands?
Six hands.
Yeah, 6 hands. Yeah, that's all the hands. And we, everyone would describe what they're doing that day and what problems they were running into. And everyone else would chime in and say like, oh, I know this guy. I'm going to make a phone call for you. Or have you tried this? Or here's how you reboot your computer, because that's never going to fix itself. And so we like, that was it. That was how we went day to day and got through all the problems. And my job was largely creative. It was, there wasn't a lot of management because there's not a lot of hands. And it was mostly create games. And then 2 things happened. One is we started to meet a tremendous amount of success. And so had to hire a bunch of people. And so management became a thing. And the second thing that happened is I realized I hate managing. And those 2 things happening at the same time are really unfortunate for me. And when you describe, it's really rough. You describe me being happier now than I've ever been. Absolutely true, because of one key difference. And here is where we're going to talk about Carly McGinnis. Carly started out, I'm only bringing this up because like I'm the number 1 member of the Carly fan club, and I need to tell everybody why she's so spectacular. So Carly started out, I actually hired her when I was chief design officer at the Xbox. And I hired her as my executive assistant, literally answering phones and replying to emails for me, like booking hotels and travel and all this stuff. And she was very, very overqualified for that job. And I realized within like 5 seconds, like, holy crap, this person is way smarter than I am. She just happened to interview for the wrong job. So let me try to fix that this time around at Exploding Kittens. And I invited her over, not to be my executive assistant, but to be president of the company. And she accepted. And very quickly, my life started getting better, because Carly is so organized and she loves challenges and she's also creative. And so she took on the role of creative manager for the whole company. She has been running that for the last 9 years now as president. And it is only through her guidance that two very, very important things have happened. One, I'm freed up to go back to being creative and helping with the strategy of the company instead of the management of the company. And two is Exploding Kittens has grown into one of the largest independent game studios in the world. And those two things are 100% because of the incredible person that is named Carly McGinnis.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I got from meeting her, I instantly became a fan, and so I could see where you're able to realize that talent. And so how big is the company now? We mentioned when it was a 6 hands, all hands, and
Yeah,
what is it ballpark? What are we talking about?
ballpark 80. It's
Okay.
between 80 and 100 based on how you define employee. It's definitely at 80. It might be all the way up to 100.
Okay, and so now that's a whole different world. And if whether this is the Carly that's been managing this process or how much you've been involved in the strategy of it, what whether it's structure or heuristics or culture or rules, or how have you been able to keep a creative powerhouse and create get everybody rowing in the same direction at that scale?
First of all, it started out really hard. And the reason it was hard is because we kept hiring more and more help on the creative side. And eventually you get very quickly into this place of like just too many chefs in the kitchen. So we restructured the company. And now when I say there's like 100 people, I would say 80% of the employees are not involved in game development because that's not our company's superpower. I mean, we're really good at it. I take a lot of pride in that. But what we're really good at is execution. And so when we take ideas and we have to make them real, we have to figure out like, okay, how are we going to afford this? All right, what do the pieces look like? Where are we going to print it? How are we going to ship it? Where are we going to store them in warehouses? How are we going to sell this thing? What is the social media going to look like? Like all of the surrounding stuff that isn't the creation of the game. This isn't the ideation of the game, but is very much the creation of the game and the sales of that game. That's our company's superpower. Now, the remaining 20% is cut up in creative. It's art and it's game development. And almost more important than all of that is it's testing. We have this incredible group of people called the Kitty Test Pilots. It's like 400 families who have volunteered to test our games. And we mail them games and they play them and they tape them and then they send us back the tapes. They get to keep the games. And we get to watch games evolve that way. And that is what this minority in the company, luckily that I get to lead, that's what we do day to day. And the way I keep my sanity is by saying, I'm only going to keep my hands all over this 20%. I'm only going to manage this. I'm going to keep putting new ideas in there. And then I'm going to trust the wisdom and the judgment of all the other people to tell me, we know how to make this game. We actually know how to make and sell this game, or this game is not makeable, or this game is not sellable, in which case that's exactly where games die. And it's that dynamic that lets us grow and grow and grow.
Okay, I'm intrigued because I'm glad you clarified this, right? Because you said only 20% is involved in the game kind of ideation, but that the actual execution and the game development involves everything all the way through marketing and sales and how do we make this product and how does it look on a shelf? Like all that stuff is a big part of the process. And so what I'd like to my understanding, and you can either just kind of answer this in the abstract or we could pick some specific examples, is like, a big part of when you're designing a game is you have to be thinking nowadays, especially with the kinds of games you guys make, is like, okay, how is this going to market? How is this going to sell? Who's this going to appeal to? And so is that a misunderstanding or is that part of that process from, very early on?
You literally just described the definition of a modern day game. Like I'll tell you a great example. So here is the process that we now go through for designing games. We have design retreats 2 to 3 times a year. We all end up in the same city. And when I say all of us, like 4, maybe 5 people. And we just go through game after game after game. Some people show up with game ideas. A lot of games we create on the fly. Sometimes they're external submissions to us and we just review games. But we go through hundreds and hundreds of games. And we usually can narrow that down to like a dozen games that are interesting, right? There's something about them is interesting. We're like, okay, so here's the dozen games we want to keep moving with. The next day, day 2 of the design retreat, is marketing and sales comes to the retreat. And we all sit down around the table and we play those games. And they have ultimate authority because they can say, this game's really fun. It is not sellable on social media. There's no way to make a video about this game. And it is at exactly that moment that that game dies. Because it doesn't matter if it's the best game in the world. If they don't know how to sell it, it is not worth wasting our time on. And what it's evolved into today is the only way to sell games is on social media, right? Like that's the single channel. And so they better have a great idea. They have to have an idea on how to sell it, on what the video looks like, on how to hook someone in the first 5 seconds, on what the what the conflict and the resolution is going to be in that video. And if they don't have all of that pop into their head for a game, we might as well not make it.
Fascinating. Okay, so now this, I'm getting a picture of the process. So you're talking about a basically quarterly-ish retreats, and you filter in however many dozens of ideas that get to you, either through submissions, internal, whatever. You've got game designers, quote unquote, the people who are core to the experience itself, that say, okay, I'm going to filter this down to a dozen. Then day 2, you open the doors and the marketers come in. I don't know why I saw them all scampering in like
They're
that.
not that creepy. They're actually very nice people.
Sorry, they're very nice people. There's nothing wrong with marketers, folks. No, but then they're playing those games that are now I'm guessing is still a pretty early, like,
Very
they
early.
need these. So these are marketers that need to be able to see through the ugliness of the game at that point to be able to kind of still get, okay, there's a hook here.
Yeah.
Is there a game that comes to mind that was one of these games that you loved that died on the vine right there? I'd love to hear about it if you could talk about it. And then also, is there a moment there where there was a game, in the reverse I'm interested in also, of a game where you're like, barely passed that day 1 checkpoint, but the marketers jumped on it and like, oh my God, this is going to be a hit. And here's
I got stories for both of those. Okay. So we were working on this game that I fell in love with because I thought it was so funny and so interesting. It was essentially, you're playing horseshoes, right? So you're playing in your living room, you've got these soft, squishy things, and you throw them across the room and you're trying to get in this target. And there's two extra elements here. One is the other team defines how you throw it. So you got to throw it when lying on your back. You got to throw it with your eyes closed. You got to throw it after spinning around 5 times, whatever it is, right? They're setting the challenges for you. But then, like in horse, you then have to do the same thing. So it was this really funny, interesting game. It was the thing that you threw made a hilarious noise every time it hit the ground. And then whoever gets closest to the target wins. We played this game for 2 hours, laughed nonstop. We made a complete mess of the living room. It was great. It was glorious. I loved everything about it. And then we invited the marketing team in and the sales team, and they looked at us and they even played, and they had so much fun playing. And they said, we need to kill this game immediately. And I was like, no, like, oh, come on, this is so much fun. They're like, a video of people lying on the floor trying to throw this thing. Are we going to film the trajectory through the air? How do we film the landing? How do we show the progression of this thing? How do we show that it's one team and then the other team? Like, everything about this is complicated. Everything about this requires 5 minutes, not 5 seconds. And therefore, this game is dead. And I looked at them and I thought, holy crap, they're right. Like, they're just absolutely right. And it was so sad. And the game is still sitting in my little notebook of spectacular games that someday maybe I will crack. But today, in the world of social media, because we cannot sell you on that game in 5 seconds, that game will never see the light of day.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. I mean, it's sad, but awesome in the insight there. And it's such a weird thing to wrap my head around. Okay. And then you got a story on the other side too.
On the other side. Yeah. So I, let's see. Okay. All right. So we have this game that I really didn't think it was that great. It was a hot potato game where you pass this thing around the table, and every time it stops at you, every time you're holding it, you have to roll a die and perform an activity before passing it along. And there's all kinds of different activities. And I was like, I've played a lot of games like this before. We actually released a version of this that was a kid's game. It's called Hurry Up Chicken Butt, and there it sells really well. But this is the adult version. And I was like, this feels a little too silly. It feels like it's not quite going to work. It feels like it's hard to keep track of. It feels like it's a little bit too much like charades. Like you gotta get out of your comfort zone. And so I said, I think we should pass on this. And the guy who runs our development department, Thor Ritz, he said, I just want to show this to sales. Like, just let them come in. And they looked at it. And I did a terrible job pitching it because I was very negative on the game. And they looked at it and they said, this is gold. We are making this game. We know exactly how to sell this thing. We know what the videos look like. It's going to be glorious. It's the best thing ever. We know the box. We know what to call it, on and on and on. And so I don't have the end of the story yet because we just finished it. It's about to be launched. It's called Exploding Pigeon, and you pass this ridiculous object around that clucks. That it doesn't. Do pigeons cluck? That make whatever noise a pigeon makes, and then eventually explodes. And you don't want to be holding it when the pigeon explodes.
Do they coo?
Coo. They coo. That's right. Yeah, it makes cooing noises. And I was never big on it, but I got to say, the marketing, all the stuff they built around it is hilarious. And they were absolutely right. You will watch a 5-second video on this thing and immediately jump out of your chair and say, well, how do I buy this thing?
Yeah. Okay. I'm intrigued. So now how do we, I'm going to put myself into the heads of what I think a lot of our listeners might be here. And I feel a little bit myself, which is like, I'm a game designer. I love to create these great experiences. It feels like such a restricting thing that if I can't teach it to you in 5 seconds, or I can't make a viral video out of it, this classes out, so many great experiences.
Yeah.
Do you feel that at all? Do you feel constrained by this space?
I do, but I gotta also say, I built this box for myself. Like, we have identified a very particular audience, and it's the largest audience, right? It's the casual game playing audience, the people who are going into a store not sure what they want yet. They're looking for a birthday gift. They're looking for something for their next game night. It's undefined, and they are going to make their judgments based on what they saw on social media or box design or a funny name. And that audience, I chose them because that's the audience that adopted Exploding Kittens when we first launched it. Now, I can sell millions of copies of games a year because of that audience. If you identify a different audience, more hobby, longer game, not 15-minute games like I'm making, maybe like hour-long games or 2-hour-long games, and you're selling in more hobby shops, right? Instead of giant mass retail, then you're allowed to sell games very differently. Then you're allowed to sell games at the conferences. Then you're allowed to go and play games in tournaments. Then you're allowed to go and sell it to your friends and even self-publish games. Like, you're allowed to do all kinds of stuff because you're dealing with a very smaller audience. Some of these audiences are huge, but they tend to be smaller than the mass audience I'm attracting. And as a result, there's more than one sales channel to reach them. And you don't have to sell 1 million copies a year for a game to be successful. You can sell 1,000 copies, 5,000 copies, and have a very big hit on your hands. I unfortunately chose a different path, and so I have these constraints that I have to deal with.
Yeah, I'll agree with that in part because certainly different audiences will have potentially more appetite for learning a game at a convention or following playing it in a tournament or whatever. But I still think across the board, this social media clip as a tool for sales and as the tool for discovery is dominating across every game category I see. Yes. So I don't think you can get out of this.
There are a few exceptions. Like what you just said is true and depressing, right? Like I wish that was not the case. I wish that a great game would result in great sales. I wish that was the case. But the answer is a great game is half of it. The other half is the ability to sell the game. And there are exceptions though. Like I said, I look at the case of Wingspan, right? Like Wingspan is an incredible game and it's a beautiful game. And if it wasn't for, what was it, the New York Times article, the LA Times article, like
Yeah.
whatever was its breakout, like everyone pay attention to this thing, it would have had a much smaller audience. And those exceptions are very hard to rely on. Like, I don't know how to engineer that.
Right.
So I need social media in order for a game to be successful.
Okay. Well, so let's talk, since you do know how to engineer social media. We've talked about, I can get the hook in 5 seconds. We've talked about it can be, in your case, something funny, but at least something that gets your attention. Are there other things for those out there that want to engineer for social media? Maybe for the mass audience, or maybe just for others. Like, is there any other principles that come to mind on how others could, help get better at this? Because I do agree, it's not, to frame this a little bit, like, I don't view the fact that you have to market a game as intrinsically depressing. Like, it is part of the design process.
Yeah.
When I make a game, I want it to be appealing, and I need to understand how it's going to get exciting for my audience. So maybe you can dive into that a little bit.
The most important lesson that I've learned in making these and having a bunch of success stories and a whole bunch of failures, the most important thing I've learned is the thing you put in your social media videos for your game does not have to be accurate gameplay. It must be related. You can't make a different game. But, like, for example, okay, so we made this game called Coyote with Tim Ferriss, right? It's such a good game. It's such a good game. It's so well designed. Everything about it, I just adore. But it's hard to make a 5-second video about it. The way you actually play the game is everybody sits in a circle and there's a bunch of cards in the middle of the table, and everyone one by one has to perform an action. If you have 5 people sitting around a table and you have 5 cards, that round is over in 5 seconds. You do the first thing, second person does the second thing, third, fourth, fifth, round is over. That's a really boring video. What we found when we filmed the videos is do that exactly the same thing, that exact game, but go as fast as you can and never stop. Go around and around and around. Repeat, 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 repeat. Now you've done it 20 times and 30 times and 40 times. And finally, you're going so fast, someone messed it up and you have this hilarious moment. That's not actually how you play the game, but it's close enough that it does 2 very important things. 1, it creates a very funny moment. And 2, you at home watch this and you think, oh, I would rule at this. I am so good at this game. I'm going to go out and buy this thing immediately because I'm going to crush this game. And that is the answer to a successful social media post about a game.
Is specifically this idea that I feel like I would be good at this game, or I would be looking for that experience, or that, this would be hilarious for my family, or I assume a variety of subsets there. But
that's right.
This one in particular is going to be like, oh, I could do this. Like, I got this now.
Yeah. And like you said, and my family's going to have a great time playing this. And so I'm going to be a hero bringing this game home because look how much fun they're having. We're going to have at least that much fun. And, but that's not exactly the experience you're going to have. You're not going to remember. It's fine. You're going to bring it home. You're going to read the rules. You're going to play this other version of the game that's even more fun because it's like, 20 minutes long instead of 5 seconds long. You're going to love it. But I'm not going to sell you on that 20-minute version. I'm going to sell you on the 5-second version and then convert you to 20.
Yeah. And I've had, Tim was on the podcast recently. It'll either be the previous episodes of this one posting or 2 previous. And we went into a lot of this detail, and he was really impressed by a couple of things about the way that your team operates. One, how much testing you guys do on these videos. that it was like the subtle distinction of like, not that exactly as you described it, that going from person to person, but that the camera would move to person and jerk to the next person, which helped to create that feeling of like frenetic energy. And like little things like that had a massive impact on how viral that video was going to be, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, look, to get millions of views on a video, you look at the thing and you think, oh, someone just, took out their iPhone and filmed us playing for 5 seconds. But no, that was take 425, right? Like, did you get the box in frame? Oh, was that close enough on them? Oh, that felt too forced. Like, we need this to be natural. Oh my goodness, the light looks totally wrong. Like, on and on and on and on until we nail it in order to look effortless.
Yeah. A lot of effort to look effortless. I love it.
Well said.
So then the second kind of semi-related aspect of this, which will jump to us to another topic, is how much Tim has praised your pitching and presentation ability. He described you as possibly the best that he's ever seen.
Wow.
And that
Coming
is,
from him,
I know,
whoa.
I thought it was pretty high praise. I mean, I thought you were pretty good, but
Yeah, all
I
right, I'll
didn't think
take
you were
what I
that
can
good.
get. Yeah.
And this is now not just because your job is not just to sell it to the public with the social posts, but you have to sell it also to the buyers at
Yeah.
these big retailers, right? And you got to be able to get them to take in your product. Now, you've already got a decent chunk of shelf space as the company you are. You've had hits of success, but not everything's a hit. So they
Yeah.
don't just take every product that you guys make, unless I'm misunderstanding how well you guys are doing. So what does that look like when you're trying to pitch those type of buyers, or anybody where it's more of a business to business, or somebody's trying to sell this to distributors or retailers? Like, how do you make that pitch work, and how does maybe some of your previous life experience lead into that? Because I know you've built a lot
Yeah.
of companies and done these things.
I was having lunch with a friend of mine who's also in the game space, and we were talking about the sell process. You go to these things called line reviews with all the big retailers. You sit in a room, you pitch everything you've got, and we started out pitching like one game at a time. We go to line review. Here's our new game. Please, please, please buy it. And we were saying like we're up to like we pitch 15 games now at a time, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, we have to do the same thing. We got this gigantic company, and we pitch 15 to 20 games." And I was like, "Cool, yeah. So how many of those? What's your average? Like, how many of those do you sell?" And he's like, "Oh, one or two. Like that's pretty good for us." And like, I realized that it was at that moment that I realized, wait a second. When we pitch 15 games, we sell 13 of them usually, sometimes all 15.
Wow.
And that's normal. Like it's very rare that we have more than like 4 games that are not purchased. And I realized like, oh, we're doing something a little differently here. And I'm not sitting in on their meeting, so I have no idea. All I know is my own experience. And I recently trained someone to help me with the pitching process, and she was asking like, sit in on a sample pitch. I'm going to pretend you're the buyer, and I'm going to pitch to you. And I was like, great, yeah, go for it. And she pitched to me, and I said, I was like, that was terrible, because all you just did was you tried to sell me a bunch of games. And I started putting 2 and 2 together and realizing like that's probably what everybody else is doing. They're probably walking into these rooms trying to sell games. And that is not at all what I am doing. What I do is I try to talk to my friends and convince them that they're going to have as much fun playing this game as I have playing this game. And I'll walk into a room and I'll say, okay, so we got this game. We're going to play it. Who wants to play? And they'll all say, no. We just have to go fast. We only have 2 minutes for this because you've got 15 games to pitch us. And I'll say, that's not the right answer. We're going to play this game right now. Come over here. Sit in the seat. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, sit in the seat. I'm going to deal you the cards. And I will force them to play the games because there's no better way to sell a game than to play the game. And I suddenly realized, like, I don't think I've ever pitched a game. All I do is I talk to my friends about how much fun they are about to have, and then I prove it. And I just do that 15 times, and I sell most of those experiences. And that's it. That's really the only secret. There's no other strategy. There's no training. Just love your games and play them with your newfound friends that are sitting in that room right there.
God, I feel so stupid right now because because I did this. I pitched to Target. I did this thing. I didn't have 20 games. I had like 5. And I pitched them, and only one of those games did I do exactly what you said. And I literally like, here's the game, let's play. And guess which game they took?
Guess which one?
That was the one they took. So this is like, yeah. Oh my gosh. All right. Yeah. No. Duh.
Isn't it weird? Sense. Isn't it weird that you need that explained to you? Like,
yes,
I literally like I was training this woman at my company, and I had to explain this to her, and I was scratching my head the whole time. I was like, wait, why does this require an explanation? This is the most obvious thing in the world. This is how you sell games to friends, and these are just friends that you don't know. They don't know you're friends yet, but they're about to find out. Anyway, yeah.
No, I feel really stupid. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. I should have known this because I've literally done it myself, and I just didn't even make the one-to-one connection from my own experience. So I can. That's great. My favorite thing is when people help me feel stupid because they can say an insight that's so obviously true once it's said, but just so I didn't obvious. Get there. So fantastic.
Yeah, games are fun when you play them.
Yeah, crazy. That's going to be the headline for this episode. So does this just to bring it back out to this because you've also done, you've pitched you've raised tens of millions of dollars in fundraising. You've launched companies. You've sold other product. So you've done other pitches that aren't quite in this space. Is there a similar version of that? When you're pitching there, or is it a different structure? Because you've clearly been successful across not just showing people a cool game you want to play.
Yeah. I mean, look, everything you do is sales, right? Like anytime you're trying to get a job, anytime you're trying to build something, get support, raise funds, whatever it is, it's just sales. You're just trying to sell them on a thing. And so I've just found that like I can only sell things that I have fun experiencing. And my whole secret to sales is just share that experience with others. And if I'm not having fun, I can't sell it because I don't know how to approach it. But like, you look at our Kickstarter campaign, right, where we raised like $9 million. And the thing about that is, if you watch our videos, if you watch the interviews, if you read our posts, our like weekly updates, we are having so much fun. And all we want to do is let you have that much fun as well. And that's the best way to sell absolutely anything. Even if it's a job interview and you're selling yourself, just have that much fun and invite the person interviewing you to have that much fun as well. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's great. There's another kind of, I forget who said it this way, but it's something that's always stuck with me is like the keys to life, which is know where you are, know where you want to go, and have fun getting there.
Oh, so good.
Just like that ability to just like, look, I'm comfortable with where I am. I don't need anything, but I know what I'm looking at. And then this is going to be a fun ride. Come on, let's go. Like that it's so anyway, that came to mind as you were.
That's the best. I'm totally stealing that. That is so smart. I love it. Yeah. It's when we were running the Kickstarter campaign, somebody asked me like, what's the philosophy behind this campaign? And immediately Matt and I both said like, it's a party and everyone's invited. Like it was just that simple and that intuitive. And like, we'll throw a party. It's free. Come along. Like you're going to have this much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And we dug into that, a lot of the details about that crowdfund in our first podcast. So for people that want to hear more about that specific one, I encourage them to re-listen to it. But one of the things I noticed is that, you ran a few campaigns after that, but then you kind of stopped as a channel. Right. So what happened there? You went from, the most successful game ever by number of backers. And I think even it was dollars at one point, but I think it may still be by number of backers. I'm not sure, but
it is by number
success.
of backers. Yeah. Number of backers. Yeah.
So biggest party ever. You did the thing, you've run other events, but now you've decided to step away from that as a channel. Why?
I think the ecosystem at Kickstarter has changed significantly in the last 10 years. When we showed up to Kickstarter, most people that backed our campaign, Kickstarter shared these results with us. Most people who backed us, it was the first thing they did was create a Kickstarter account and then back us, right? So like we were their entree into this platform. And that was glorious. Like what a cool thing, right? And we're going to have so much fun and we're throwing this party and we've got hilarious updates and we're going to send you all this free stuff and on and on and on. And then those people stuck around Kickstarter because they should. And some things started to happen on Kickstarter. One is it doesn't exactly have the right tools to build community. Like you can back a project, you can read about a project, but their chat tools are quite antiquated. They don't have the ability to form subgroups. They don't have the ability to have the kinds of conversation that you would expect on most modern platforms. And the community suffers as a result. The other problem with Kickstarter is a lot of people over the intervening 10 years have had very bad experiences, not with Kickstarter itself, but with projects they've backed. Either a project never ships, takes their money anyway, or a project does ship and it's not what was promised, or it ships and it is barely functional. And I have backed, probably 500 or 600 projects at this point, and I've only got like a 50% success rate, meaning only 50% of those projects have ever mailed me something slightly resembling what they promised to mail me. And I think once that happens over enough years, it is very hard to get a casual audience, and again, our audience, very casual, to return to that platform because they've been burned a number of times, like probably half the time that they've spent over those years since Exploding Kittens has been negative for them. And we found that as we started reaching out to our audience over and over again and trying to attract a new audience, that the feedback we got from them over and over was, I'm just going to wait till this hits retail because I just don't want to go back to crowdfunding. And we eventually realized, okay, so our audience has moved to retail. That's where we're going to now focus all our efforts.
Okay, that makes sense. And yeah, I had a similar. I mean, we our games are a little bit more core focused, generally speaking. So I think crowdfunding is still a big part of what we do. But I found the same problems with Kickstarter, that the tools were just so antiquated, and it was shocking to me because we'd had a lot of success there, not quite as much as you, but a lot of success there.
Yeah.
And then we ended up transitioning, and we have a campaign, our 15th Ascension 15th anniversary campaign, probably is. I think it'll probably be running around the time this episode airs. So for anybody that
Cool.
wants to check it out, you can. I'll shamelessly plug. But yeah, we went to GameFound because it had a lot better tools for that, a lot better tools for community, and yeah, it's still something that there's a lot of room to evolve. So
Yeah.
so you still sell through retail. You have you market primarily through social media. You have a core audience of people that are your like super playtester
Yeah.
family groups.
TV test pilots. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is so what was the vetting process for that group, or how do you select, because
Oh,
that's a really important role here. So I kind of want to dig into that piece of the puzzle.
yeah, it's huge. It's we've grown it over the last few years. So basically, when we have openings, and we try to limit it to about 400 families at a time, and our criteria for becoming one of those families is: one, we have any openings; two, you live someplace that we can ship things back and forth easily and fast; three, you make a commitment that within 48 hours of receiving a game, you will send us back a video of you playing that game. And then there's a few other like logistically nitpicky things, but that's basically what we're looking for. And if those criteria are met, we will accept anyone. And we're very much innocent until proven guilty. So we will love you and trust you and send you all the things until you violate any of those rules. So if you take more than 48 hours, or if we mailed you something but you never confirmed receipt, or all the little things that say like this isn't as important to you as it is to the family right in line behind you. So now we're going to just get you out of this program and get the next family in. And we have a very, very low turnover rate. But when we find that you don't appreciate this as much as someone else who might, we try to get those new people in as fast as we can.
Okay. All right. And so now let's try to close some of the gaps, because we jumped around a little bit. We got submissions to filter one, the designers, filter two, marketers and sales. And we know that there's a outside testing group that's part of this vetting process. And we know that there's a, come play with me and, sell this to the stores and get it to the stores. Let's fill some of the gaps in between, because I know when you send stuff to outside play testers, it's got to be a lot more polished and ready than it is on that day 2 day.
Yeah.
And I got to talk to Tim a little bit about the kind of sprint process that he went through. But I'd love to get from your side, we could talk about Coyote specifically. We could talk about other games in general, or how you try to structure that design loop of kind of testing and iterating and getting it to that place where you're now comfortable, A, sending it to that group, and B, sending it to stores.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Coyote, because it's the most recent, and it went through literally every step of this process. And we should talk about testing, and we should also talk about selling that game, because there's a lot that we've learned on both of those fronts. So for testing, that game starts with, we had this like little mini design retreat. Tim and one of our designers, Ken Gruhl, came over to my house in Toronto, and we hung out for like 2 or 3 days, mostly taking walks and just kind of saying like, what do we like? What's bad? And there was this one day we got rained out and we were trapped on the street. Anyway, all this stuff, all this fun, lovely memories of like, what is joy? Like, how do we put joy in a box? And it was around the 3rd day that we finally started scribbling on cards and coming up with this sort of, we called it competitive rock, paper, scissors when we first started. And I know rock, paper, scissors is competitive, but this had a different twist to it. This was like cutthroat, insane rock, paper, scissors. And at first, it was literally just blank playing cards that I buy literally by the tens of thousands on Amazon, just constantly shipped to me, and I scribble on them with Sharpies, and that's how I make games all day, every day, blank cards and Sharpies. And I walked away from that meeting thinking, there's something here. This isn't done, but there's something here. And I kept scribbling on the cards and kept tweaking the rules. And I play with my family, and I've got a few friends who live near my house who are always willing to play a very broken prototype with me. And I tell them, and they know it's broken. I know this is broken, but let's find the good parts in here. And we did that over and over and over again for a number of weeks until I had a deck that I was like, okay, this deck is at least solid. Like, I know the cards aren't broken. I know the core gameplay isn't broken. My next big challenge is, can I record a video that's going to explain to somebody else how to play it? Like, can people play this game without me as one of the players and still have fun? And so that's my next round of testing, is either through video or I'll be in the room. But again, I'm just letting other people play. I'm taking lots of notes. I'm making new revisions. I'm sending copies to Tim, and we go through that. And that takes a while. That takes a long time. I remember I once asked another designer, like, the final version, what version of the game is that? He's like, I don't know, like 2 or 3. And I was like, holy crap. When I put out a version, that's like version 1060. Like, it is, I can't even describe how many versions we go through before we finally get to a version that I think should be on a shelf. So we go through version after version that way. And it is only at the point where my friends and family who are playing this game a lot say, this is really fun. I think I get this now. That I will start to record or write down on paper a physical explanation of how to play. And this is like the scariest part, because now I'm not in the room. Now I'm not correcting in real time. Someone plays the wrong card. I say, oh, no, you can't play that at that time. That goes on that pile over there, right? I can't do that. I'm not in the room. They just have the instructions, and the game has to survive on its own. And it never does. It completely I've got a few families that are, willing to try that version, and they always send back videos that are totally busted because I missed such obvious stuff in the instructions. So we go through that a few times. Then when I can pass...
Can I just ask, how quickly is the turnaround time in one of these loops? You're saying you got 1,000 loops here, so it's got to be pretty fast.
I'll usually go through like 5 or 6 versions a day.
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah.
And how are you? So you have people around that are testing with you as you're moving through those 5 or 6 versions?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Constantly. Yeah.
Amazing.
So we do that for a few weeks, and it is finally when the instructions and the game are both able to stand on their own, right? Like, the instructions don't have graphics in them yet, but they're at least comprehensible and the gameplay is solid. Then we hit kitty test pilots, and we send out a questionnaire with the game. And that questionnaire used to be very long, and now it is only one question long. And that question is, do you want to play again?
The most important question by far.
All I care about. I used to send out all these questions, and I realized I'm not even reading the answers. What was your favorite part? What was the worst part? What do you think could be improved? I don't care. I never read any of that. Do you want to play again? When we get like 90, 95, 99% yes, that's when we stop testing and we go into final production.
Wow. I love that. One, you talked about having KPIs for the company. You've got one KPI that matters. Do you want to play again?
Seriously. I mean, what else matters, right? Like, It's just, it took me forever to get there, but that's where we are.
Oh, that's great. Again, that's a lot of work to make something actually simple and make it look easy.
Effort to look effortless, I think you said. Yeah,
that's right. So, okay. So then this is a great level of insight into the process. I'm interested now because the Tim project and Coyote, it didn't sound like it went through this kind of initial filter. It sounded like this was something you just were excited to work with him and kind of push it into this process and be willing to go through the loops with somebody who's not in, not traditionally in games space. So Tim obviously has a great background in games, and again, we've talked about it. He's got a great mind for this sort of thing. Yeah. You've also worked with other folks like Jeff Probst to make the Survivor game.
Yeah,
which as you know, I'm a huge Survivor fan, and this is a cool moment to have. So I'd love to know when you're going through a pipeline like that and working with someone who's not traditionally a gamer, but in both these cases has some game experience clearly. What makes you decide to work with a partner like that? How does that differ from a more traditional, it's a game designer pitching a game, or you coming up with the idea?
Yeah. Okay. So there's 3 very different things we're talking about here. One is traditional game design, which is, we either develop something internally or someone submits something and we evaluate them and we go. The Tim Ferriss model, which is I was on Tim's podcast, and then we, I don't know, overnight became best friends somehow and started working on a game together. And then the Jeff Probst model, which is totally different. I'm gonna challenge you to say I might even be a bigger Survivor fan than you are. Like, I just adore that show so much. I've watched all the episodes. I've watched the episodes in different countries, like just all of it.
Yep.
And I got very lucky. I got very lucky to be invited to be on the challenge design team for one season, right? So this is a few guys sitting in a room, run by Kerhofer, who's just this. He's been on since season one. Just this incredible guy. He runs all the challenges for every season ever, and we sit in this room and we design challenges. And I got invited, and I was so excited because this is like, just absolutely on my bucket list. And this was right after the Exploding Kittens Kickstarter campaign closed, so I had like one copy of the game. There were actually like a few in existence, but not many. And after the session, I left the game there at the office, having a little bit, a bit of an idea in my head, like maybe I can plant a seed here, maybe someone will play this. And a few weeks later, I get a call from a voice that sounded very familiar, and he identified himself as Jeff Probst, and he said, "Hey, I found a copy of Exploding Kittens in our office." And I was just like, yes. And he said, "It's so much fun. I have this birthday party tonight. I want to give this as a gift. Where do I get it?" Now, the correct answer, the true answer is, "Oh, it's in Target. Just drive down the street and go there." But what the answer that I said was, "You can't. It's nowhere. The only copies in existence are at my house. So you have to come over to my house right now." And to his credit, being the incredible guy he is, he said, "Oh, sure, I'll be right there." And he came over to my house, and there's a knock on the door, and I open the door, and holy crap, it's Jeff Probst. Like, what is happening in my world? And he comes in, and I show him the game, and we just immediately hit it off. Like, it was just like fireworks. It was total man crush, fireworks. I was like, this is like talking to a more evolved, smarter version of myself. He turns out to be maybe the best game designer in history. He just doesn't know it or identify that way. And so I gave him the game. He gave it as a gift. After a while, he started calling me saying, "Hey, put on your game design hat for a second. I'm having this weird issue with the show, and I would love your advice." And it got to the point where he would say, like, "Hey, I'm thinking of introducing an economy into the game, like tokens, right? These fire tokens. You can use them to buy things and trade things. And how do I test whether or not that'll work?" And I said, "Well, you're going to need a full economic simulation of your show. And so I'm just going to write that for you." And I spent like months writing this massive simulation with all the contestants and all the variables and these little miniature AIs like running through the show. And I was like, "And here is the answer." And he loved it. And of course, it never quite made it onto the show, but it was just showing like my level of enthusiasm for this is going to exceed anybody else, and I promise you, like, this is very, very important to me.
Oh yeah. Well, the idea of being able to design for that game, first of all, that, has so much history, and that there's so many, it just creates such fun, interesting social dynamics. And as I recall, your phrase, like, your goal is not to make entertaining games, but to make the players the entertainment, right? To make the
That's
players.
right.
And that's the whole point of this show, is to be able to do that and create this experience specifically for the audience, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so one day he actually came to me and said, "Hey, what about a card game for Survivor? Here's a rough draft. And I've been playing this, and it's, it's fun, but it's not great, but it's fun. And what do you think?" And we played it, and it wasn't great. I mean, it certainly had, it felt like a Survivor wrapper around Exploding Kittens. And I was like, there's so much about this, about your game, about your show, about like the low blood sugar, and about the personal conflicts, and about the insect bites, and about getting grumpy, and now you're starving, and you're frustrated, and like, how do you do all of that in 30 seconds? Because I think that's possible. And he said, "Cool, show me." And so I sat down with my team, and we built a version of it, and we all went over to his house, and we played the game. And it was glorious. I mean, it was so cool. It was certainly had a lot of rough edges. And we eventually went back like 3, 4, maybe like a dozen times, and eventually got to a place where we were like, holy crap, this is Survivor in 20 minutes. Like, it's the whole show in a deck of cards. And it's all of the conflict, and it's it's tribal council, and it's conflict, and it's alliances, and it's betrayals, and it's backstabbing, and it's building a spy shack, and finding out information that nobody wants you to know about. And like, it's all of that in a deck of cards. And that process was very different from any other, because in that case, we knew exactly what success looks like. We just weren't sure how to get there with a deck of cards until eventually, finally, all of a sudden, it was very possible. And when we solved that very complicated design issue, everything started going really fast. Like, we actually got that thing pretty much wrapped up within about 8 months after solving the design challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I love the where a game is trying to take the like emotional experience and impact of another game and port it to a new medium. Like, I find that to be such an interesting challenge when you're like, making a card game version of a video game, or like, I worked on the Marvel and DC trading card game for a little while, the versus system trading card game, where I have to take the comic book experience and like, okay, what happens when Superman and Wolverine have a fight, which is like, I would imagine all the time as a kid, and how do I represent that in this card game? It's a really fun design challenge, especially to take something that you love so much and to be able to shepherd that to a new format.
I have to share one really fun moment. Like, so we have this designer, a senior designer on our team named Ian Clayman. And I tasked him with, he was like, okay, first step of the game, you draw a card. And I was like, okay, yeah, but hold on. What about conflict? What about, like, how do you make it so that people are constantly having to, like, there's limited resources. How do you make it so that when you draw a card, somebody else doesn't get to draw a card? How do you instantly create conflict? And he came up with this super simple thing, which is the first step of the game is not draw a card. The first step of the game is steal a card. You must steal a card to start your turn. Pick a player, steal a card. You must do this. You must. And he shortcutted 20 days of sleep deprivation and low blood sugar in 1 second. You must steal a card. Now you have enemies. Everyone has enemies. Now let's play Survivor.
Yeah, that's great. I think that there's a lot of really fun, subtle things about how you make games like this matters, right? Like, there's what I call kind of hot conflicts versus cold conflicts, right? And so where there's a world where if I have a face-up set of cards that we're taking and drafting from, and I pull something from you that you want, it's way more viscerally meaningful than if that was a hidden set of cards and I was pulling those things, right? The mechanics could be very, very similar, but that I know that I took that from you, or even if the cards are literally in front of you and I'm pulling them, right? It makes a big, big difference in the emotional impact. I think it's like a really fascinating little twist there.
Good. Oh, what you've just described is exactly the mantra that I was saying earlier, which you recounted, which is, I don't think the game should be entertaining. I think the game should be a tool set to make the players entertaining. And the interaction you just described is exactly that.
All right. So let's have some fun here. Let's take an exercise and apply your model to a game that you wouldn't make as Exploding Kittens. Let's see if that, because this world, right, where you said you put yourself in a box, and it's a very lucrative box with a lot of players. But if you were going to step outside that box, and I'll let you pick the genre, because I just think this will be fun to play. What other genre would you be interested in that we could apply this model to and ideate on something fun?
Yeah. So I really like light strategy games. Mm-hmm. And even light strategy games are too intense for my audience, right? Sure. Like, I love Catan. One of my favorite games of all time is Ticket to Ride. Mm-hmm. And so we could never make Ticket to Ride at Exploding Kittens.
Yeah.
But the reason I love this game so very much is because all the tools that you need to win the game are right there. They're right in front of you. Everybody can see them. Everyone can see all the tracks. Everyone can see all the little possible routes. Everyone can even see the resources to build those routes. The only thing missing is which one you want to build and which one I want to build, right? That's the secret information. And now, because that information is limited, every time I make progress, it's going to be potentially at somebody else's expense. And you kind of gauge interactions between reactions that players make when you put down a track to figure, oh, well, now that really pissed you off. All right, I know what you were going for, right? Like that beautiful, we're all making progress, except only one of us can make this one little bit here. And now you got to go all the long way around. Like, I love that. The reason we could never make it is because it's very long. It requires a lot of patience. The beginning of the game is very slow. You don't jump into the action. But once you invest in this game, once you're 25 minutes into this game, this switch flips and it just becomes the greatest thing of all time. And I would love to be able to build games like that, that players would trust me through a slow beginning, that the ending is going to be spectacular. But I have not figured out how to bring an audience along with me yet.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So I think that let's linger on this game category for a little while, because I think things like, Ticket to Ride and Catan and Carcassonne, maybe to a little bit of a lesser degree, like they've been able to kind of be in many ways the sort of gateway games into more serious strategy games, but they're light enough that anybody can play them. They're approachable, but there's like a secret brutality to these games that that I find fascinating. Ticket to Ride definitely is like this, where it's if you know what you're doing, you should be taking out and blocking these main like road paths from very early on, and so it creates this really interesting dynamic of, if the players are at different skill levels, the game is a blowout a lot of the times, right? It's a very tricky space. So I think it's like a fun, if you're all at the same skill level, I think that game is amazing. And I think similarly, like Carcassonne, if you've played that, where it's a tile laying game, and there's a beautiful simplicity to it, right? You're just trying to match up sides to the tiles. The more pretty things you complete, the better. But as a competitive player, what you really need to be doing is blocking off your opponent's options by like brutally cutting the number of pieces that can now complete their things and trapping their thing. And so
that's right. No, well, or manipulating the economy, right? The whole thing is supply and demand, and so if you can control that, suddenly you dominate that game. Yeah, just love it.
So then, are these features or are these bugs in the games?
I see. So we're actually talking about the difference in audiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, because I think these start out as features until you get masterful at the game, and then they become bugs. Now, here's the thing. My audience is really never going to transition to that.
Yeah.
Right? Like they will move on to the next game before they play their 10th game of Catan. And as a result, they're never going to get that level of strategy. So yes, it's a bug for certain audience groups. I currently don't have access to that audience. So maybe that's a good thing. Like maybe that's a glass half full version of the audience I'm dealing with.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So this is, we've actually had to think about this a lot in our game, right? So, our company motto is work with awesome people, make awesome things, help each other grow, right? Which is a great statement. It's a great feeling, but also it's a little vague. And when I say that, so we have a deeper kind of level, like what does it mean to be awesome people? What does it mean to be awesome things? What does it mean to be helping each other grow? And we kind of break it down. And I'll speak to one of those things, because when I talk about awesome things, now it's like, how do I differentiate my awesome things from other people? And part of what I look for is these games are going to last a lifetime. That these are games that I'm going to continue to find that depth and continue to find that that they hold up to the 100th game strategy, right? And that's a big part of what I try to make in what I do. And it's really interesting to see that actually, you know what, it's maybe as a benefit, like, no, you could I could get away with so much more if I wasn't worried about that. Like the ability to make a kind of light strategy game that only needs to hold up for 10 plays. You can get away with a lot more.
It's so interesting. So I'll give you, I got two answers to that. One is, I have never thought about that, right? I've never thought about the 100th game, because I don't need to, because nobody's playing 100 games. No one's playing these games 100 times. And so, yes, you get a lot more leniency when you don't have that thought. But there are games that I've designed that people do play hundreds or thousands of times. And I'm thinking of games like Poetry for Neanderthals. And the quick version there, just so everyone's on the same page, is this is a game where you have to get people to say a word on a card that only you can see, but you can only give clues using single syllable words. Immediately you start sounding like a Neanderthal. That's it. That's the whole game. Very simple. But the reason that people play that game hundreds or thousands of times, the reason that they bring it to tournaments, the reason that it shows up in family reunions over and over again is because that game is barely a game. That game is, in its purest form, a tool set to let you talk to other people in the room. And other people in the room are infinitely entertaining, right? They're going to bring 1,000 versions of that game to the table, 1,000 playthroughs of that game to the table, because it relies on people's brains in order to play. And their brains are going to be a little different every single time based on the cards, based on the input, the environment, the other people in the room, etc. So I think there's two things in play there. One is you can abandon that. You absolutely can abandon the 100th playthrough constraint and free yourself up tremendously. The other and equally valuable avenue that you have as a game designer is to design a game that relies almost entirely on the brains of the people playing to provide the actual gameplay, not the strategy, not how to get through the dynamics that you created, but how to actually supply the content of the game based on what they bring to the table.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and just in terms of like what we mean by kind of like depth in a play experience, right? So this idea that there's a variety of different ways I can choose to approach this and come in, whether it be Poetry for Neanderthals or charades or any of these games where I'm performing in some sense. It's like, or even, Dungeons and Dragons or those kinds of things, right? It's a lot of it is like I have this opportunity to perform and create. And so this is a showcase for me. And then there's other games where the gameplay itself is like quite simple. But the players' dynamics with each other is what makes things interesting. So poker is a great example of this, right? It's like not that complicated of a game, but it is infinitely deep and interesting because everything that you do is now signaling information, and we're playing back and forth in this space.
You're playing the players.
Yeah. I guess a more modern game, I think Codenames is a wonderful case study in this as well, right? It's like really brilliant design. I'm going to getting Vlad on the podcast soon, which has been I've been looking forward to. We get to chat.
Oh, good for you! Oh, that's so exciting. Can I tell you my favorite way to play Codenames?
Yeah, please.
This is here's a little hack. If you've played Codenames and you're ready for the next level of Codenames, here's what you do.
Secret tip.
Okay, you take Codenames. I know this is so much fun. You take Codenames and you also go out and you buy a copy of Codenames Pictures, right? Same exact game, it's just images instead of words on the cards. And then, here's the key, you shuffle the two decks together. So now your grid is made up of both words and pictures, and now play with all the same rules. It's just now you're looking for clues that satisfy potentially, pictures and words all in one set. It's glorious. It's so much fun.
Oh, that's really good. Okay. I'm going to try that out. I like this.
Yeah.
Do you have any other? Okay. So then I could go on forever, but we're going to run out of time. But are there other games? Because this is a fun thing to do as a designer, right? Like you kind of like, create your own little twist and redesign a game. Like I had Richard Garfield, I got a bunch of people to record some videos, promote, talking about their feelings about Ascension or whatever for the 15th anniversary. And he was kind enough to record one. And then he's like, by the way, I have my own variant of Ascension, which I encourage everybody to play, which is you try to make the worst deck possible. And how do you deck build? And, there's some a couple little rules on like you're required to spend all your resources if you're able or whatever.
That's so good.
And it was like, oh, that's so cool. He just completely inverted my game. And it's such an interesting model.
Good.
So
that's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, I got a few. Okay, hold on. I got two.
All right.
Two for you to try.
All
right. One's really easy. Monopoly Deal. Monopoly Deal, I believe, gets infinitely better if you remove the deal breaker cards from the game. Just go through. I think there's only one of them. Maybe there's two. Remove those. Play the game again. I think that game gets 10 times more fun at that point. But okay, so that's an easy one. That's more of a critique than a hack. Here's the actual hack. Here's one that's a hack. Bonanza. Have you played Bonanza?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Bonanza, for those who don't know, is a trading game. You have a set number of cards, and you cannot change the order of your cards. So you've got a secret hand, but you can't change the order. And on your turn, you have to play the first card in your hand. You can play the first two if you want. The way that you make room for the cards that you must play is by trading with other players. And the rules of the game dictate that all trades have to be with you. So you trade with another player, right? And you just do that, and then you enter. Hopefully, you open up a few doorways for yourself, and then it's on to the next player's turn. Here's the rule hack. You allow trades to happen on your turn between any players as long as the cards move through you. So you say like, okay, you need green beans and you need vanilla beans. I don't need either one of those. So I'm going to allow you to trade with each other as long as I get a blue bean somewhere in this process. I don't care who gives it to me, right? And as soon as you open up this like global trading economy instead of this like one-to-one trading economy, that game becomes the most fun thing ever.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. So basically, I'm the broker in this deal. Like if it's my turn,
Yes.
I'm brokering a deal, and so I am only going to allow it if I get something out of it. But I am allowing a sort of direct exchange.
Exactly. And you can even open up future commodities. You can say, look, all right, you need that card, you need that card. I don't have either one. I'm going to let you guys trade, but next time you get a blue bean, I don't care when it is, you give it to me. And I'm going to trust you. And that's the future trade that I want. You can open up anything as soon as you say this is a global economy instead of a one-to-one economy. It's just, I love it.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, this is great. And this is, this has been fun to linger on, and a couple of these I'm definitely going to try. But it's another nice, like, I think game designer hack in general, right? Like taking games that you already love or that are out there and finding a way to twist them up and finding a way to like take away a rule or switch out a card or change something or add something. It's a really great way to kind of hone your design instincts and get to see like kind of what works and what doesn't in a system that already basically functions, you know?
Absolutely agree. And sometimes you end up breaking perfectly functional games that way.
Yes. Oh, 100%. And you realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe just adding this other whole thing wasn't a great idea at all. And here we go.
Yeah.
And then,
as a designer, the other thing I would recommend is everyone should try that, because even if you don't create a better version of the game, even if you monumentally screw up a game, you will start to really appreciate how much work went into the design that ended up in the box.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's a lot. I mean, it's very, especially with my audience, maybe, I don't know if this is true with your audience, but they are very passionate about the games and they're very passionate about their critiques about the games that we make. And if
Absolutely.
we, and so, and again, I'm grateful for that because that means they care, but when you see like, hey, if I just, the most classic examples, like people want to get rid of the, bad land draws in games like Magic, right? Like they want to remove that variance. And you're like, no, that is so critical to the fun of that experience. You just don't realize it. So you know what? Go try it. See what happens.
Try it. Yeah. Yeah. You'll arrive at the right place. Yeah. Just try it.
Yeah. It's the key, I think, in as I've matured as a designer, I still like I make plenty of stupid mistakes all the time. I'm just able to like find that, discover them faster. Like I'm able to like, okay, I've made this kind of error before, so probably we're going to move in this direction, or I'll very quickly see in a mental play test to be like, oh yeah, that's not going to work at all. Like, and I could skip a step really quickly. Your ability to do the rapid level of playtesting that you have, and 5 or 6 versions a day, is pretty remarkable. I mean, the fact that your games are so short is a big part of it. But are there I mean that for sure. I did a game. I did a game called Bad Beats way back in the day that was like this. It was a quick little bluffing game, kind of like a minimalist version of like Coup. And so you have 2 cards, you pick one, you keep it, and then you just say what it is, and people can believe you or not, and if they don't, if they believe you, then you do whatever the action is. And if they don't, then you reveal, and if they're wrong, there's a
so I love it.
It was fun,
clever.
great little game. But I made it in like 3 months or something. It was like so fast because I could just play and iterate. So that one piece obviously is a bit of a hack, but maybe doesn't apply to everybody that's making. Some people are making longer games. The quick and dirty is another piece that I know is really important. And you said you have hundreds or thousands of blank cards and Sharpies. I think the fact that A, you can create it quickly, and B, that it looks ugly and you're not attached to anything are both like really important pieces. Is there anything else that you lean in on that helps you rapidly prototype, iterate, and learn?
Yeah. Well, first, let me just say, when I say blank cards, I don't always use them as cards, right? Like I travel around with cards because they're easy. But when I need a die for a game, a 6-sided die, I'll just take 6 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, shuffle them up. Now I got a die. When I need it to be a 25-sided die, just as easy, right? When I need a spinner, that's cards as well. When I need a board, that's just a grid of cards, right? Like cards are everything. So I'm not just talking about cards. I'm talking about the fundamental building blocks of all games when I say cards and Sharpies. Let's see. I think the other thing is I take a lot of feedback when I'm testing games. Like players talk a lot, and it took me the longest time to figure out that I'm allowed to ignore them. And you're inviting people into this very vulnerable space, and they trust you and they love your game and they want you to succeed, and they start talking about change this and change that. And I used to spend so much time either saying, I'm going to write all this down, or I'm going to tell you why I've tried all those things, or I'm going to tell you why I think those are a bad idea. And then I just realized, like, it's okay to just let them talk, nod and smile, and then go to the other room and write out a whole new version that has nothing to do with what they said. And they're going to play that next version anyway. And then we're going to go through this whole thing again. And that's okay. And I saved so much time by just giving myself permission to, in a very polite, very courteous way, just ignore what they're saying and move on with what I think I need to do next.
How do you know when the time that you should listen to your playtesters versus when it's time to follow your instincts and ignore them?
It's very simple. You absolutely do not.
Best answer possible. Oh my God. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, I was asking this. This is true. Maybe this is tied to it or not, but I've had this come up in an interview I did, and another one I interviewed somebody else, and the differences between when you're going through a hard time and you're kind of in the dark forest of creativity or the trough of despair of a project, and that it's just about taking the time and pushing through and going through the iterations, versus when the universe is telling you, hey, this is not working, stop. And I often ask that question of people, like, how do you know the difference? And I think that your answer applies to that too. It's very hard. It's very hard.
Very hard. It's very hard. Yeah. And it will always be. There's no one that's going to drop any wisdom that's going to make this any easier.
Damn it. Are you sure? I really was hoping. I've been doing 80 some odd episodes. I'm looking for somebody to tell me how to know.
Yeah. Well, maybe 81.
All right. We'll keep it going. Awesome. Elan, it's so much fun to talk to you, man. I really appreciate you coming back on. I want to sneak into one of these design retreats one of these days. Can I bring some fun games that we can play?
You are so welcome to. That would be such a delight. Yeah. Okay. So next time you're in Toronto or Los Angeles, let me know.
Okay.
And like I said, we do these like 3, sometimes 4 times a year. It would be so much fun.
All right. I'm down. I cannot wait. Thanks so much for coming on, and I'm going to see you in person next time.
I love it. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you want to support the podcast, please rate, comment, and share on your favorite podcast platforms, such as iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever device you're listening on. Listener reviews and shares make a huge difference and help us grow this community, and will allow me to bring more amazing guests and insights to you. I've taken the insights from these interviews, along with my 20 years of experience in the game industry, and compressed it all into a book with the same title as this podcast, Think Like a Game Designer. In it, I give step-by-step instructions on how to apply the lessons from these great designers and bring your own games to life. If you think you might be interested, you can check out the book at thinklikeagamedesigner.com or wherever fine books are sold.